Today we'll discuss how the fact that the crew did the FIB raid in the end led to saving everyone in GTA 5. So let's back up a bit. Where exactly is the crew just before it happens? So Michael's getting pressured by Steve Haynes, him and Trevor still aren't getting along, and Franklin is in the middle of it all with no idea what to do, and the big one has been put on hold ever since the Brad incident. And so Steve goes and meets with Michael and Lester at the garment factory and wants them to do no more, no less than rob the FBI headquarters of the entire West Coast. With that said though, all of this was never supposed to save the main trio, but rather Steve Haynes' own ass and his own self-interest. However, it ended up saving literally everyone, kinda except for Steve Haynes if I'm honest, but let me explain real quick. Well, what do we do in the FIB raid? The best visual representation of this is in the option where you pick the ninja skills approach, which is the one where you get out of the helicopter, jump out, parachute down and whatnot. But the best visual representation, like I said, is when you're deleting the files, when you're standing there with Michael guarding the computer and when the files are being deleted. And if you focus on that for a little bit, you can see some of the folder names which refer to things like the prologue, Michael Townley, or who he is, and so on. There's a section about, I think, Mr. K, about Trevor, about a lot of other things that Steve Haynes has proof of that the main characters were involved in, but when you delete it, he doesn't anymore. This was the culmination of all of the dirt that Steve Haynes had on Michael, and by extension, everyone else. But with Michael successfully deleting all that, Steve Haynes loses a majority of his proof, but that's not the only reason why this benefited the crew majorly. Even though Steve got them to do this to save his own ass, it's way too late for Steve to be saved, so he ended up getting fucked over anyway. And in the wrap-up mission, we can see that everyone is by this point onto him regardless of the files being deleted. So in the wrap-up, he tries to have Michael arrested out of desperation, and while if he did, Michael would have been in trouble because it probably would have been found out that he was the Michael Townley, but again, Steve doesn't have any physical proof of his claims, which were the files which Michael deleted. Please, if anyone's a lawyer, explain to me what Steve could have done to Michael if he arrested him here, at least from a legal perspective. Like, could Michael ever, after this point, have ended up in jail for being the Michael Townley? Could anyone prove that he was the Michael Townley at one point who got a new identity, did this whole off-the-books deal with Dave and whatnot? Real quick though, if you're in the comments already, make sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you guys are enjoying it so far. We're trying to get to 3K subs before GT 6, so let's go and try to make that happen. Whatever the case is, we established that the FIB raid helped the crew in the way that it was the point where they could get a shit ton of dirt off of them that Steve Haynes and anyone else would have on them and could be able to blackmail them with, which is what Steve was doing throughout the rest of the game before they deleted the files. However, it also helped them in getting rid of Steve, ironically enough, because Steve in the wrap-up says they know that I'm behind the incident, with the incident he's referring to being the FIB raid, which prior to us doing, they already had suspicions about him, them of course being the FIB, IAA, and everyone else. This got Steve in an even tougher spot, and seemingly without a way out, so he tried to quickly take care of things by having Michael arrested, which he again tried at the beginning of the wrap-up mission before the shootout started. And the shootout starts because everyone that has dirt on Steve Haynes show up and he almost gets arrested, and then he gets shot in the leg. Now you may ask, well, how did this lead to the gang being helped in getting rid of Steve? Well, Steve after the FIB raid is desperate to get rid of any and all loose ends, so he tries to have Franklin kill Trevor, and then Devin Weston shows up and also demands Franklin that he should kill Michael, and instead Steve gets fed a sniper bullet through his skull and Devin gets thrown off of a cliff in the trunk of his own car. My final point is that this is all one big domino effect. The FIB raid saved the gang by getting an opportunity to delete the files. It set off Steve Haynes, put him in an even tougher situation, so he became desperate. At the same time, Devin Weston was also desperate to kill Michael, and they both signed their death warrants when they try to use Franklin as a puppet to get rid of Michael and Trevor. If it was not for the FIB raid, Steve wouldn't have been so paranoid and in such a hurry to kill/arrest everyone that could have been a problem for him. He maybe wouldn't have gone to Franklin that day ordering him to kill Trevor, which happens, of course, if you remember, right after the mission Lamar down. And if Steve hadn't shown up there, maybe he wouldn't have even been killed because the gang would have not perceived him as a threat perhaps, although I do think that they still would have because he just couldn't be trusted. But even if they let him go, he would still be a loose end, which could have theoretically happened with the gang, kind of thinking that he can't do anything without the files, and then he would have been a problem down the line, which is something I can 100% guarantee. And with that said, I want to thank you for watching this video. This is an interesting topic that I really enjoy talking about, so you guys leave your thoughts on it in the comments down below. But until next video stream, bye bye.